Novel Navigator. Chapter 31, Seize the Spirit of the World. Peng. The indifferent young man's heavy landing shook the arena and made the floor crack. Senior brother Yemo. Jian Meng'er looked at him. What are you doing? Junior sister. Yemo shot a glance at Jian Meng'er. Great Master and I are here today to see your excellent presentation for the campaign of Sword Pavilion Master. Instead, you're being humiliated on stage. As a great master, she cannot help you in respect of her status. However, as your senior brother, I cannot just stand by and watch. Yemo looked at Jian Wushuang again after that, and said in a deep voice, Jian Wushuang, as a man, does it give you a sense of achievement to bully a woman? A woman? Jian Wushuang could not help laughing. I couldn't tell she was a woman when she taught me an unforgettable lesson 2 months ago, that strength mattered the most in the world. Well, you're right. Yemo nodded, hummed in a cold voice, as you said, only strength matters in this world. But I will tell you with confidence that my junior sister, as well as the disciples of the great master, are not easy to bully. I will let you know that you are just a narrow-minded person and a contemptible scoundrel. As the voice fell, a strong spiritual power was emitted from Yemo. The spiritual power was much stronger than the peak profound spiritual sea realm emitted by Jian Meng'er. Exceptional spiritual sea realm. How could Yemo already be an expert in the exceptional spiritual sea realm? How old is he? He looks about our age. How could his cultivation of spiritual power be so high? It was already surprising that Jian Meng'er achieved the profound spiritual sea realm at 16 years old, not to mention her senior brother. The drill ground was immediately filled with exclamations. Shui Hangzhen, there really are a lot of geniuses in the Tianyuan sword sect. Bai Chong looked at Shui Hangzhen meaningfully. The reason why my Tianyuan sword sect is strong is that there are plenty of generations of genius disciples attracted by our rich resources that keep gathering there. Meng'er is only at the top in talent, but she is not the strongest, Shui Hangzhen said. But your disciples' behavior goes a bit too far, right? The moment Jian Meng'er was defeated, he jumped out. If Jian Wushuang was defeated, would all of your top disciples in Tianyuan sword sect jump out to help him? Bai Chong said in a cold voice. So what? There are indeed many apprentices in my Tianyuan sword sect. What's more, he is also 16, the same age as Jian Wushuang. It is fair for the two of them to fight. Shui Hangzhen said and laughed. That is different. Bai Chong shook his head and said, although they are at the same age, the cultivation they have is rather different. While your disciple gets top resources from the Tianyuan sword sect, including cultivation methods in swordsmanship, guidance from experts at the peak of the gold core realm, as well as from some stronger disciples in the Tianyuan sword sect. Jian Wushuang learned all this by himself. How could they be the same? Then who is to blame? It is he himself. Looking pale, Shui Hangzhen shot a glance at Bai Chong and spoke in a low voice, Bai Chong, Jian Wushuang has nothing to do with you. He is from Sword Marquee Mansion, and you are the supervisor of the gladiator arena. Even the Sword Marquee Mansion master allowed this disciple to jump out. Why are you complaining? Bai Chong, stunned, couldn't help looking at the experts from Sword Marquee Mansion. They were either elders from Red Martial Hall or alchemists from Pill Refining Room, except for Jian Xinhong. But people from Sword Pavilion were not here. People from Red Martial Hall and Pill Refining Room did not support Jian Wushuang. As for Jian Xinhong, he hesitated for a while, however, when he saw the cold complexion on Shui Hangzhen, he swallowed his words. Because he could tell that Shui Hangzhen was enraged. If he supported Jian Wushuang at this moment, he would offend an elder who had great power in Tianyuan sword sect, in the name of Sword Marquee Mansion. So, he chose to swallow his words. Bai Chong couldn't say anything because even people in Sword Marquee Mansion didn't support him. How could he blame an outsider? Spiritual power at the exceptional spiritual sea realm came from Yemo on the arena. It made the disciples from the Marquis Mansion feel stressed. Exceptional spiritual sea realm. Jian Wushuang felt surprised. Exceptional spiritual sea realm is a higher level than Jian Meng'er's. Yemo became an apprentice of Shui Hangzhen a long time ago. What's more, he has been training in Tianyuan sword sect with cultivation methods and secret sword arts. His swordsmanship must be more excellent than Jian Meng'er since his cultivation is much stronger. Jian Wushuang had already tried his best to defeat Jian Meng'er. As for Yemo, he felt very unsure. However, he sensed that he had to fight with Yemo when he saw the icy stares of Shui Hangzhen and the complicated expressions from everyone around him. I have no right to refuse the fight, yet I never wanted to refuse. So let's begin. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands tightly, showing a little insanity in his slightly narrowed eyes. Soul devouring. Secret skill. The void shook with insanity. Jian Wushuang's body seemed to become a dark hole capable of capturing anything. Natural power from all things of the universe came to him at a surprising speed. As the natural power poured into his body, Jian Wushuang's spirit raged. His cultivation of spiritual power was only at the peak of the eighth heaven of the divine path, almost at the profound spiritual sea realm. However, now his cultivation of spiritual power exceeded the eighth heaven of the divine path into the ninth heaven of the divine path. At the same time, a piercing pain made Jian Wushuang's face contort. Finally, when this soul-devouring secret skill reached the peak, the pain in his body reached its peak too. His cultivation of spiritual power promoted to the ninth heaven of the divine path at that moment. Grinding his teeth tightly, Jian Wushuang's face contorted. The moment he raised his head, a light filled the void. Jian Wushuang spoke with great arrogance and obstination that resounded in the people's hearts. You are Yemo from Tianyuan sword sect, right? If you need to be convinced, then I will convince you with my fists. Chapter 32, Sword-Killing Movement. Bang! Jian Wushuang sparked spiritual power that could match the exceptional spiritual sea realm. Applying the soul-devouring secret skill, his cultivation immediately reached the peak of the ninth heaven of the divine path. His present spiritual power could almost match the profound spiritual sea realm. Because of the advantages of the heavenly creation skill, the peak of the ninth heaven of the divine path had nearly the same power as the peak of the exceptional spiritual sea realm for normal warriors. What happened here? How did his spiritual power become so strong? All those present were in awe. They were wondering how Jian Wushuang had become so strong all of a sudden. However, if they looked under the floor, they would find that all the creatures within 100 meters of Jian Wushuang had died. What? He is actually retaining his strength. Jian Meng'er, who had retreated to the drill ground, trembled with fright when he saw the aggressive figure from behind. Jian Wushuang's look changed completely. His ruthless eyes were fastened on Yemo. He was aware that using the soul-devouring secret skill did great harm to his body, and the pain in his body would grow with each passing minute. He had to end this fight as quickly as possible. Kill! Jian Wushuang's sword and the long sword turned into a ghastly force. Ping! Sword light shone, cold and glaring. It was still the first move of the anonymous sword art, Blood Shadow. Jian Wushuang defeated Jian Meng'er in a single move. The extraordinary speed of the sword art amazed everyone, and the present speed was obviously faster because of Jian Wushuang's growing cultivation. It's too fast to think about. Yemo hummed with remarkable noble spirit, and a magnificent sword light appeared. What Yemo used was the Boundless Heaven sword art. But Yemo used the Boundless Heaven sword art in a much more flexible manner than Jian Meng'er. This was because Jian Meng'er had just begun to train in the Boundless Heaven sword art. Yemo grew up studying the sword art in the Tianyuan sword sect. They obviously had a different level of understanding towards the sword art. It was still a fight between the giant of heaven and earth and the king of assassination. However, Jian Wushuang's first move, Blood Shadow, met the magnificent sword light instead of going around it, causing these two strong forces to erupt. It was apparent that the advantage of Jian Wushuang's first move, Blood Shadow, was its amazing speed. But it still fell behind the boundless heaven sword art in terms of strength and power. After the collision of these two swords, the cold and shining sword light darkened quickly with the overwhelming crush following. It didn't work. Jian Wushuang was disappointed. The advantage of your sword art lies in the speed, but it lacks in strength. My junior sister has been practicing the boundless heaven sword art for only a short time, thus she didn't have a deep understanding of it. This caused her defeat. I am much better. Yamo's look was ruthless, and he said in a low voice, Jian Wushuang, you must think your sword art is very swift, yes. I will show you what real speed is. Yamo turned into a flowing light as soon as he finished his words. Wah! Yamo appeared in front of Jian Wushuang swiftly with his sword light. Both the body and the sword were like flowing light. How fast! It is so fast! A large group of disciples in a marquis's mansion were astonished. This is one of the four ultimate sword arts of the Tianyuan sword sect, flowing light sword art. It is famous for its speed. Bai Chong was marveled in the stand. The four ultimate sword arts of the Tianyuan sword sect were all first-class sword arts, so once each of them was practiced to a certain degree, they would be extremely terrifying. As for the flowing light sword art, its advantage was speed. It was so fast that the sword light became many shadows and twisted in the air. It looked like it was being swept by the sword light. Jian Wushuang's expression was very serious. When Yamo's sword art came toward him, he used Aurora sword art first. Speed was extremely important in the Aurora sword art, and Jian Wushuang had mastered it. The sword art was extremely fast when it was used. Clang! 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 Numerous consecutive clashes could be heard, but it was obvious that Yamo's flowing light sword art was faster. Although Jian Wushuang tried his best, Aurora sword art was only a first-class sword art, while the flowing light sword art was a supreme sword art. It was even known as an ultimate sword art in the Tianyuan sword sect, which mainly studied sword principle. There was a big gap between the level of these two sword arts, so even though Jian Wushuang had mastered the Aurora sword art, he still could not gain an advantage. In the arena, Jian Wushuang was forced to retreat continuously. Then suddenly, a fierce chop instead of the usual sword jab came towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang immediately noticed. He raised his long sword naturally, meeting the fierce sword shadow with his body sinking slightly, and then he retreated very quickly. Jian Wushuang, your swordsmanship is not so great. Yamo glared at Jian Wushuang ruthlessly. If your strength is like this, then the battle is over. Just as Yamo finished speaking, a strong sword essence suddenly burst from him. He moved the long sword in his hand slowly. With this move, a huge dim shadow with a height of over 10 meters appeared from behind. The long sword was moving with Yamo. Finally, the sword art had matured. Boundless Heaven's sword art, legendary maneuver. Yamo slashed suddenly with the long sword in his hand. The enormous sword shadow was also wavering. This sword seemed to be able to split the world in half. The strong power left the crowd breathless. The horrible sword essence could destroy nearly everything. All the people on the drill ground were amazed. Not good. Bai Chong was in the arena. His expression became serious and the spiritual power appeared in his hands. He was ready to save Jian Wushuang. However, he became hesitant as soon as he saw Jian Wushuang's expression. Jian Wushuang's expression was very subtle, with hints of seriousness and surprise, but mostly excitement. Is he going to use the 11th move? Jian Wushuang stared at the strong sword light coming toward him. At this moment, a deep awareness of crisis sprang up from the bottom of his heart. He thought about how the sword could cut him into two pieces. but this unprecedented life or death crisis made him feel something. In this moment of life or death, he became calmer and closed his eyes. Is this it? Is it like this? I finally understand what it was that prevented me from using this style. It is the ruthlessness for killing. If the sword is for killing, how could I lack the ruthlessness for killing? Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, an onrush of excitement flashed before his eyes, and he waved the triple kill sword. It was the second move of the anonymous sword art, sword killing movement. Chapter 33, Confusion. Hua. A dazzling bloody sword light swept directly out. Killing intent began to emerge and rise. Sword killing movement. Bai Chong stood up instantly, stunned by this dazzling bloody sword light, and said, the second move of the formless sword art, sword killing movement. He managed to put it to good use. Sword killing movement. Shui Hangzhen was also surprised by this, apparently knowing the prestige of the second formless sword art, sword killing movement. Shui Hangzhen, hurry up. Help your disciple, said Bai Chong. Lowering her eyesight slightly, Shui Hangzhen gazed at the two nearly colliding sword lights in the arena and sighed in frustration. She moved quickly. Clang. Having collided with each other in the arena, the two horrifying sword lights instantly witnessed victory and defeat. What? Ye Mo, with his eyes wide open, found it rather hard to believe that the most powerful attack, with all of his strength, had been totally defeated without any struggle. Then the dazzling bloody sword light, still concentrating all its power, hacked straight towards him. An unprecedented crisis of death immediately shrouded him. Shui Hangzhen's figure suddenly flashed in front of him at the last second, and the bloody sword light dissipated with just the wave of a hand. Only complete silence remained in the arena. Ye Mo clenched his teeth, gazing firmly at Jian Wushuang, his heart full of unwillingness. He accepted this defeat unwillingly and helplessly. After all, he knew clearly that he would have died if his great master had not given him a hand. Such a terrifying sword stroke could easily tear his body apart. At this moment, Jian Wushuang gazed past Ye Mo. He was suffering great agony from using the soul-devouring secret skill. Even his face looked extremely ferocious. This skill was far more fearful than he ever imagined. It reached the extreme limit in only a short amount of time. Bzzz. The soul-devouring secret skill ceased spontaneously, and the soaring aura around Jian Wushuang faded away rapidly, even to an ignorable extent. Jian Wushuang could not be more feeble, and his entire body was trembling. On the contrary, his inner unyielding willpower was the source of standing still. When he raised his eyes, the triple kill sword in his hand headed precisely towards Shui Hangzhen. Unconvinced? Then fight. The rising sword essence suddenly erupted. It was this moment that impressed the entire audience on the drill ground. They all saw how Jian Wushuang had become so weak, yet the battle intent and sword essence around him never faded away. Shui Hangzhen's complexion was pale and cold, she was already overwhelmed with helplessness. Fight back. How is this possible? Since it stemmed from the conflicts between Jian Wushuang and Jian Meng'er, Ye Mo had helped the defeated Jian Meng'er, which was far too excessive. A putative second fight was not only excessive but extremely shameless. As one of the elders of the Tianyuan sword sect and an expert at the peak of the Gold Core realm, Shui Hangzhen had somewhat retained her gentility and self-respect. Meng'er. Shui Hangzhen glanced at Jian Meng'er with a pale face and stupefied expression. She said, "You have no choice but to cultivate with me in the Tianyuan sword sect from now on, and are forbidden to step outside for 3 years, during which I will promptly teach you all my skills." Suddenly Jian Meng'er was astonished, showing a very complicated look. But then she let out a deferential, "Yes," nodding her head. Jian Wushuang. Shui Hangzhen gazed coldly back at Jian Wushuang. "You won today. It only shows that there are some limitations on teaching my disciple, not for a shortage of some more exceptional disciples in my Tianyuan sword sect. In 3 years we will witness another competition between you and Meng-er. Another competition in 3 years. A slow sly smile crept at the corner of Jian Wushuang's mouth. He looked Jian Meng-er up and down, then snickered silently. Jian Wushuang himself was deeply aware of it. Jian Meng-er had been defeated by someone not even qualified to compete. After all, the gap between them was bound to increase because what he had been cultivating was the heavenly creation skill. Silently turning as if Jian Meng-er had no presence, he headed downstairs slowly. Anytime. An icy utterance came from Jian Wushuang, resounding throughout the drill ground. Everyone focused on the heavy footsteps below as if each individual step was terrifically tough. Everyone could feel how the existing sword essence was growing more and more powerful with each step. Nowadays, from the perspective of the audience, Jian Wushuang was spontaneously endowed with something peculiar. No one could figure out what it was exactly. As Jian Wushuang's figure gradually disappeared from their sight, they were all amazed at the strong soaring sword essence. There were no words, only silence. On one of the top floors of the arena tower, 4 figures stood still. The 4 seniors looked very ancient. The gray-haired leader wore a long robe. The 4 great elders of Sword Pavilion. The senior leader with a long robe was the impressive Elder Hong. On such a critical day, a decisive time for the Sword Pavilion, Jian Wushuang hadn't let the 4 elders down, even growing enough to create a miracle. He had defeated Jian Meng-er with only 2 months of cultivation. Such an unprecedented achievement was surely a great shock within the Sword Pavilion, even to these 4. However, the 4 elders stood still, more depressed than ever before. Deep misgivings, rather than any joy, emerged on their withered faces. With a low voice, one of the elders said, "Brother, I assume you see it?" Nodding, Elder Hong concentrated on Jian Wushuang's back, his eyes never leaving it. Despite being tired physically and mentally, he still stands firm and tense. Sword essence surges upwards, but never disperses. The awakening of sword soul, the same as our pavilion master. Absolutely. Once they heard the awakening of sword soul, their looks suddenly became respectful and earnest. Meanwhile, Elder Hong looked up at the immense sky and wondered how the previously sunny day somehow now showed a hint of darkness. Elder Hong lifted up his hand, covering the upward universe, and slowly uttered, "Oh! It's about to change." Chapter 34, Scarlet Kill Command. The annual Sword Marquee token battle was over. In the battle, the exceptional genius Jian Meng-er, who everyone had been expecting to win, had shown remarkable talent. However, to everyone's surprise, she had been completely overshadowed by someone else. 2 months prior, Jian Wushuang had been an untalented normal person. But now, only 2 months later, he had become the victor in the battle. Not only did he defeat Jian Meng-er, but he even defeated Jian Meng-er's senior brother, Ye Mo, who had achieved the exceptional spiritual sea realm. A real genius. More than a monster. The whole Sword Marquee mansion and even the whole Bashui Commandery were talking about him with great relish. In the Bashui Commandery County, an old man in a grey robe with silver-white hair walked alone through the streets. It was Elder Hong. He came to a deserted alley. In this alley, there was a shabby wine shop that had been there for years, but no one came here to buy wine. The whole wine shop had only one person, the proprietress. Elder Hong walked into the wine shop and looked at the proprietress standing behind the counter. Without saying anything, he walked directly into the inner hall to wait. After a while, the old woman, the proprietress of the wine shop, came in gracefully. "How long has it been since you've been here, blind old man?" 2 years. The middle-aged woman smiled. "I came here today for something important," Elder Hong said with dignity. "Why didn't you stop by when you were free?" "You are a little ungrateful," the woman said this with a weak smile, and then asked, "What's the matter?" Elder Hong took a deep breath and said, "The young master has awakened the sword soul." "What?" A moment ago, the woman had been very calm. Her face immediately became extremely solemn. Jian Wushuang would have been very surprised if he had heard the term that Elder Hong used. He had always been known as Young Pavilion Master, but now he'd become the Young Master. Sword soul. The soul of the sword ancestor. The woman said solemnly, "I am very surprised that after the master awakened the sword soul, the young master also awakened his own sword soul. Both father and son awakening sword soul simultaneously, that is almost inconceivable." "It is incredible, but it happened," Elder Hong said. "Although awakening sword soul has great benefits, it also has evil accompaniments. If I am right, now that young master's sword soul is awakened, people in that place will certainly be aware of it, and they will soon come to kill the young master." "Kill the young master?" "Just as they dealt with the master that year." The woman had a trace of killing intent in her eyes. "Yes, so we must act immediately." Elder Hong's voice was solemn, and he immediately drew a letter out from his arm. "Go at once, and send this letter to the one in Golden Dragon Palace. He must be informed as quickly as possible." "Yes." She nodded solemnly and took the letter. She set off without hesitation. In the meantime, in Tianyang Province Jingdong Commandery, in a slightly secret chamber. By candlelight, a man with a purple coat sat solemnly reading the sealed letter before him. Suddenly, the door of the chamber was opened, and a black-robed man ran in quickly. "Hall Master, there is an urgent order." The black-robed man respectfully handed him a letter. He opened the letter. The first thing he saw was a blood-colored token. The token had a word carved in clear scarlet, "Kill." A scarlet kill command. The man was surprised. The organization he belonged to was extremely powerful. People were scared to hear the name of the organization everywhere in the Tianzong dynasty. There were many orders for organizing top-level people, such as the bronze, silver, and golden killing commands. But the Scarlet Kill Command was the supreme command of the organization. Only the mysterious leader of their organization could release it. A Scarlet Kill meant that it had to be done regardless of the price, as long as they could kill the enemy. Even if all the experts who were sent to assassinate the target would die. The Scarlet Kill Command had been handed down only a few times since the organization's creation. Pass down the order. Make all assassins above Silver Mask level come back immediately. No matter what they are doing now. Even if they've accepted a task, make them give up the task or delay it immediately. If anybody hasn't returned within 3 days of receiving this order, he will be killed. The man sneered. Yes. The black-robed man nodded respectfully. He continued to look at the letter. Bashui Commander, Sword Marquee Mansion, Jian Wushuang. From this day on, we shall keep a close watch over our target's actions. We must not let him out of our sight before we are ready to make our move. Sword Marquee Mansion. It had been 5 days since the battle ended. During the past 5 days, 2 great events had occurred in Sword Marquee Mansion. The first was that the mansion master, Jian Xinhong, had appointed Jian Wushuang as the new Sword Pavilion Master. No one was surprised. After all, 2 months ago Jian Xinhong had appointed Jian Meng'er as the Sword Pavilion Master. He had been preparing to hold the official ceremony after the token battle. But, during that battle, Jian Meng'er had been defeated by Jian Wushuang directly, in front of many people. Plus, Jian Wushuang himself belonged to Sword Pavilion. His swordsmanship was unique, and he took over as Sword Pavilion Master in a more convincing way than Jian Meng'er. As for the second thing, it was the great elder of Red Martial Hall. Jian Lan had resigned from his position after the battle and left Sword Marquee Mansion to travel far and wide. This caused a great stir in Sword Marquee Mansion, but it was understandable. After the battle, because of her talent, no one had said anything to Jian Meng'er. She had followed her great master to go to the Tianyuan sword sect and cultivate. But Jian Lan was a joke in Sword Marquee Mansion, and a lot of people were stealthily sarcastic towards him. Jian Lan had been aware, resolutely resigning his position as Great Elder, leaving Sword Marquee Mansion. It had been a good choice. In the courtyard, Jian Wushuang was practicing his swordsmanship alone. Sword light was moving, and it was confusing. For a long time, Jian Wushuang stood with his sword. It's been 5 days, but my body still hasn't really recovered. Jian Wushuang said secretly. The soul-devouring secret skill had done so much damage to his body that it had been in a state of extreme weakness since then. It had not returned to peak condition yet. Well. Jian Wushuang raised his head suddenly and looked at the yard. 4 old figures came in, the 4 great elders of Sword Pavilion, headed by Elder Hong. Elder Hong, Senior Yuan, Senior Qing, Senior Li, Jian Wushuang called out immediately. Chapter 35, Follow me. Young Pavilion Master. The 4 great elders walked before Jian Wushuang, then Elder Hong said, "We are here to thank you. Sword Pavilion would have fallen into the hands of Red Martial Hall if you hadn't defeated Jian Meng'er." Senior Yuan said, "Yes, you were magnificent, young Pavilion Master. It was amazing that it only took 2 months for you to surpass Jian Meng'er. You are definitely the son of the Pavilion Master." Senior Qing proudly said, When I heard that you, young Pavilion Master, would have a battle with Jian Meng'er, I was sure that you could defeat her." Senior Li refuted him at once, "You dare to say that? You were the first to say that it was impossible." Hearing the 4 great elders' words and even seeing them play with each other, Jian Wushuang smiled. His heart was full of gratification. But at the moment, Elder Hong looked at him and said, "Young Pavilion Master, you did a good job at a tough time. You held the Sword Pavilion together for us. But now you are leaving." "Leaving? Where am I going?" Jian Wushuang was surprised. With severe countenance, Elder Hong said, "You are leaving Sword Marquee Mansion and going somewhere else." Jian Wushuang felt a little puzzled, but why? Because, Elder Hong was silent, not knowing how to answer. A cold voice suddenly rang out, "Stop your nonsense." As Jian Wushuang turned and looked around, a green-clothed woman appeared behind him. The green-clothed woman was graceful, with black hair and a veil covering her face. Although people could not see her actual appearance, one could tell that the woman was very beautiful just by looking into her eyes. The green-clothed woman seemed charming. However, there was a faint smell on her body. All the good was gone. Jian Wushuang frowned and asked, "Who are you?" He was sure that he had never seen this woman. Elder Hong noticed the green-clothed woman and didn't feel any sense of amazement. He said, "If you're here, that means that the others should be ready." "Yes," she nodded, stepping toward Jian Wushuang. "There is little time to say so much. You come with me at once." "Follow you." Jian Wushuang showed alertness, and sword essence began to gather in his body. "Ridiculous." The woman laughed and moved around. Jian Wushuang did not react as the woman patted his forehead with her palm. At this moment a majestic spiritual power poured into his body. It blocked his 8 extra channels and then seized his hands. Jian Wushuang wanted to rebel, but he realized, to his horror, that he could not control his spiritual power. Jian Wushuang was frightened. Gold core. She has at least cultivated a gold core, she might even be an expert of the gold core realm. Elder Hong said loudly, "Young Pavilion Master, you can go with her. She won't hurt you." Jian Wushuang tried to say something, but all of a sudden, boom! A terrifying roar came from close behind, immediately followed by a large amount of spiritual power. "Who are you? How dare you behave atrociously in my Sword Marquee Mansion?" A voice immediately rang through the sky. Jian Wushuang recognized that the voice, it was the Sword Marquee Mansion Master, Jian Wushuang. "They're coming," said the green-clothed woman, who had already put Jian Wushuang behind her back. "I'll take him and hand everything else over to you. The four of us are ready." Elder Hong and other three great elders looked at each other, and each took out a scarlet pill. They did not hesitate to swallow the scarlet pill. "Blind old man." Another person came to the courtyard, a graceful middle-aged woman. She was the proprietress of the wine shop where Elder Hong had gone before. Jujun, noticing that someone had come in, Elder Hong became nervous. The woman smiled, nothing else to say. "Give me a scarlet pill." Elder Hong frowned. "No. Are you not willing or you do not have any?" The woman, Jujun, smiled and then took out a scarlet pill. "Fortunately, I prepared one for myself." After finishing her words, she swallowed it quickly, not noticing Elder Hong's expression. Elder Hong sighed. "Jujun, why would you do this?" "Blind old man, do you know why I always call you a blind old man?" "Because you can't see how I've felt about you for so many years," Jujun smiled, "but it does not matter anymore. Although we have not really been together, at least we can die together." Elder Hong took a deep look at Jujun and nodded heavily. The four great elders of the Sword Pavilion and Jujun had swallowed a scarlet pill. The aura surrounding the five people instantly soared up, directly reaching an unprecedented level. Gold core. 5 people had all reached the primordial gold core realm. Elder Hong's aura was the strongest, reaching the point of the profound gold core realm. This, Jian Wushuang was completely confused. "What's happening? What's the matter? Who broke into the Sword Marquee mansion? Who is the green-clothed woman with a veil? What kind of pill did the four elders swallow? Why did their strength suddenly improve so much? And most importantly, why did they swallow this pill? Why do they look like they are going to die?" Jian Wushuang had so many doubts. He did not understand what had happened. All of this was too sudden, there had been no signs at all. "Ji Wu, I will leave the young master to you." Elder Hong turned red and growled with a trace of madness in his eyes. Ji Wu looked at the 5 people. 2 words that were so heavy came out of the mouth of the green-clothed woman slowly. "Take care." After finishing her words, Ji Wu did not hesitate to turn around, taking Jian Wushuang away at full speed and sweeping out of Sword Marquee Mansion. Just as Ji Wu turned and left, a wide roar of rage rang through Sword Marquee Mansion. "Ha ha, you blood-feather tower bastards, prepare to go to hell. Well, you 5 old people. How dare you block us? Kill them! Kill them!" As the roar of rage echoed, the whole Sword Marquee Mansion was caught in a terrible war. Deadly amounts of spiritual power soared through the area. While all this was happening, Jian Wushuang was totally at a loss. What on earth is happening? Chapter 36, Bloodfeather Tower. While Sword Marquee Mansion was in upheaval, something happened in the gladiator arena. "Sir." A black-robed servant came anxiously to Bai Chong and passed him a note. After taking a glance at the note, Bai Chong's face turned grim. Some impressive words were written on the note. "Jian Wushuang is in danger. Please quickly come to Tranquility Forest, 10 miles from the border, to save him." Bai Chong then looked at the signature. Smile allure, Ji Wumeng. Ji Wumeng. A look of fear showed in Bai Chong's eyes and then he immediately ordered, "All golden-robed servants follow me, right now." A moment later, 7 figures full of energy rushed out from the gladiator arena. Each of these 7 figures had reached the Gold Core realm, among which leader Bai Chong ranked at the peak of the Gold Core realm. Tranquility Forest, 10 miles from the border. Several figures stood in the treetops, waiting quietly. "Here they come," said a burly man with a head of disorganized hair. He followed them with his eyes. Whoosh! Ji Wu appeared at the top of one of the big trees, with Jian Wushuang right behind her. Jian said indifferently, then I'll leave it to you. Jian, you didn't tell us before that our task was to fight against Bloodfeather Tower, said an aloof and thin young man. How about double rewards after you finish the task? Jian looked around with her cold and gloomy eyes. Okay. Suddenly the experts who had felt dissatisfied before were nodding their heads with desire in their eyes. I need you guys to obstruct the experts from Bloodfeather Tower for as long as you can. I also found some extra helpers for you. After saying that, Jian looked up to the sky where 7 figures rapidly schemed over towards them. Golden Dragon Guards from the Golden Dragon Palace. When Bai Chong came to Tranquility Forest, he not only saw those extraordinary figures on the treetops but also noticed gold rings on their index fingers. Each of them wore a gold ring, the symbol of the Golden Dragon Guard. Sir Bai Chong. Upon seeing their arrival, Jian Wushuang felt pleasantly surprised, even though he was under the complete control of Jian. Jian Wushuang. Bai Chong glanced at him and then looked at Jian with eyes suddenly becoming strange. Are you Jian man? No, you are not her. You are Jian. Yes, it's me. Jian nodded and said sternly, Bai Chong, when my elder sister was alive, she was very kind to you and my brother-in-law also took you as his confidant. Now their son is in danger, won't you help him? Bai Chong's face darkened and he looked at Jian Wushuang with a serious expression. Take him away right now. As for the people from Bloodfeather Tower, I will try to obstruct them for a while, Bai Chong said in a low voice. Thank you so much. After thanking him, Jian looked at the burly man beside her and said, Bulletin, let's go. Yes. The burly man nodded and immediately took Jian Wushuang, jumping into the forest with Jian. But just as they jumped into the forest, a chipper laugh burst between the sky and the earth. Ha ha, Jian man, where are you taking that little guy? Don't you want to take the antidote? Only I have the antidote, so you'd better stay. The voice was full of evil. After hearing the words, Jian felt a slight chill but didn't intend to stop. After the laughter, a loud roar burst out. It was obvious that the two sides had collided. Golden Dragon Guard. Men from the gladiator arena? How dare you intercept our Bloodfeather Tower? Humph, bastards of Bloodfeather Tower. Do you think that our gladiator arena fears you? Kill. The war broke out instantly with roaring and shouting. In the forest. Are those people who want to kill me? Jian Wushuang could see several black-robed men behind them when he turned his head. Most of them wore silver masks and just a few wore golden masks. What the hell is going on? Those people are all here. What about Sword Marquis Mansion and Elder Hong? Jian Wushuang shouted anxiously. Shut up, Jian shouted loudly. She continued, unsympathetically, these people are coming for you. Their arrival here means the battle in Sword Marquis Mansion has already finished. As for Elder Hong and the others, they are dead. Dead. Jian Wushuang was stunned. All 5 of them swallowed scarlet pills. It enhances their strength quickly by consuming the person's life. A warrior can only swallow 1 scarlet pill in their lifetime because they are doomed to die after taking it. What? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Finally, he understood why their strength had enhanced so much before. They had swallowed a scarlet pill and paid for it with their lives. Why? Why? Jian Wushuang could not help roaring. Why? Because you awoke the sword soul, and that's how things are now, said Jian. Sword soul? What is sword soul? Jian Wushuang still felt baffled. He had no idea what she was talking about. It seems that you haven't noticed. Right, you have just awoken it, it's normal that you don't know. But once your strength increases in the future you will notice the existence of Sword Soul, said Jian. Do those people want to kill me just because I have awoken Sword Soul? What the hell is Sword Soul? Jian Wushuang roared. I don't know what sword soul is because neither I nor the others have awoken it. The only one who has awoken it is your father, Jian Nantian, Ji Wuo said in an uncaring voice. Haven't you always wanted to know why your father left 4 years ago and disappeared without any news? What? Jian Wushuang glared and said, was it because he also awoke sword soul? Yes, Ji Wuo nodded, but you are different. Your father awoke sword soul during the Gold Core period. It didn't take long before Blood Feather Tower came to kill your father after they heard that your father had awoken his sword soul. But they underestimated your father, which allowed him to escape by a fluke. And then your father was afraid of incriminating you and Sword Marquee Mansion, so he left and started living like a fugitive. And now? Jian Wushuan hurriedly asked. Now? Your father has been caught by Blood Feather Tower. I don't know whether he is alive or not. Ji Wuo shook her head with a wry smile. You only care about your father. Don't you want to ask about your mother? Your mother? While speaking, Ji Wuo abruptly had a quiver and her extremely beautiful eyes soon became scarlet with violence. Chapter 37, Tragic. My mother? Jian Wushuan asked enthusiastically. He had grown up with his father, Jian Nantian, until he was 12, when his father suddenly left and was nowhere to be found. As for his mother, he had never seen her, and his father had never even mentioned her. So until now, he did not even know what his mother's name was. You know my mother? Jian Wushuan was just about to ask. But all of a sudden, Ji Wuo threw him directly to the burly man that was skittering beside her. Wuo, you, the burly man took Jian Wushuang very quickly and looked at Ji Wuo at the same time. However, what he saw greatly shocked him. Ji Wuo's veil had dropped, exposing a horrible face that was completely purulent, with blue veins surging upon its surface as if millions of insects had bitten her. Ji Wuo roared out crazily and miserably, looking to be in extreme pain. Damn! Poisoning! The burly man, Buletin's face became gloomy. This didn't happen earlier, nor later, but now suddenly. Poisoning. Jian Wushuan looked at Ji Wuo in shock. Jian Wushuan. A slightly crazy voice suddenly rushed out from Ji Wuo's mouth. Listen. Your mother, Ji Wuomeng, was the eldest daughter of the Ji clan. 3 years ago, your father was hunted by Blood Feather Tower, and having no other choice, he fled to the Ji clan. In order to protect your father, the Ji clan went against Blood Feather Tower and resisted all the experts that they sent. In the end, your mother was killed, your father was taken away by Blood Feather Tower, and our Ji clan was extinguished. All of the families were slaughtered. I was the only one lucky enough to escape. So you have to remember, you are not only the son of Jian Nantian, but also the last in the bloodline of the Ji clan, except for me. You have to live well and grow up, improving your strength and ability so that you can destroy Blood Feather Tower and avenge my entire Ji clan. And, Ji Wuo had an expression of madness as the extreme pain of the poisoning made her words continuously stutter. You have to keep. Triple kill. Sword. Well, your father, said that is, the token, enter into the ancestors' land. By the end, Ji Wuo's voice had already turned hysterical. Go. Buletin, take him and go at once. Ji Wuo suddenly roared and shouted again. Buletin looked into Ji Wuo's eyes deeply, then carried Jian Wushuan on his back. Go. Aunt. She is my aunt. Jian Wushuan finally understood who Ji Wuo was. No, take my aunt, we'll go together. Once poisoned, Wuo will instantly turn to unconscious madness and she will attack everyone. If we take her with us, none of us would be able to escape, Buletin said in a low voice. Even so, we cannot leave her behind, Jian Wushuan shouted. Buletin turned a dark expression and slapped Jian Wushuan on the back of the neck, immediately knocking him unconscious. Taking the unconscious Jian Wushuang, Buledin quickly fled from the area. Soon, a man in a purple coat from Blood Feather Tower found Ji Wuo, who had gone crazy. "Ha, Ji Wuo, come and follow me obediently. Old bastard and Ying, you will meet a horrible end." Half a day later, the slaughter in Tranquility Forest had finally calmed down. Bones and corpses were all over the battlefield, and more than a dozen black-robed men and masks were standing there, led by the man in a purple coat. Even sending out more than 30 silver-masked assassins and 3 gold-masked assassins was not enough to kill the target. More than half of the silver-masked assassins were killed or injured, and even one of the gold-masked assassins died. So many losses, what do you have to show for it? The man in purple's expression became heavy. Clatter, clatter. The black-robed man immediately knelt down behind him. "Send the order. Release the scarlet arrest warrant all over Tianyang province. You must find him, even if you must completely turn Tianyang province upside down," the man in purple said in a chilling tone. "Yes," answered those black-robed men immediately. "Although we did not kill the target this time, catching Ji Wuo counts for a little bit." The man in purple muttered, "With Ji Wuo, I am not afraid that Jian Nantian will not speak." After the tragic battle, the entire Sword Marquee mansion was in ruins, and the atmosphere was extremely depressing. Every corpse was moved to the back of the central drill ground, up to 100 corpses at a glance. A large number of the disciples in Sword Marquee mansion stood on the edge of the drill ground, looking at the 100 corpses, each one of them with an ugly face. "Mansion master, the casualties have been counted," said an elder of Red Martial Hall, coming over to Jian Xinhong. "Fine, go on then." Jian Xinhong's pale face, and the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, showed that he had obviously been through a great battle and was seriously injured. 8 experts above the spiritual sea realm died. 4 of them are the 4 great elders of Sword Pavilion, the rest are the servants of Sword Pavilion, that elder said. "All of them are from Sword Pavilion." Jian Xinhong's eyes stared and he asked again, "What about the dead disciples?" "There were 94 disciples of the spirit path that died. Most of those disciples did not take the initiative to join the war. Instead, they were helplessly dragged into it. The youngest of them was only 12, and had just gathered spiritual power," the elder replied, with a trace of grief. Hearing the number of casualties, Jian Xinhong was shocked from head to toe. His face became green and then turned pale. After a long time, he sighed deeply and said, "Bury them well." In the drill ground, there were several other people standing there who looked very dismal as well. They were Bai Chong and others from the gladiator arena. But the gold-robed servants that followed Bai Chong had decreased from 6 to 3. Bai Chong was looking at the corpses spread all over the ground, and his right hand could not help touching his left sleeve, which was empty and covered in blood, impressively lacking an arm. "Jian Nantian and Ji Wuomeng, I no longer owe you a debt of gratitude." On this day, with the sudden outbreak of war, even the forces of all the parties involved were not clear about it. The result was, in the Sword Marquee mansion, the 4 great elders of the Sword Pavilion had all died. Zhu Jun had died. The 4 servants of the Sword Pavilion and nearly 100 ordinary disciples of the Spirit Path were implicated and killed as well, the youngest of whom was only 12 years old. Sword Marquee mansion was full of countless wounded. Of the 6 gold-robed servants from the gladiator arena, 3 died and the other 3 were all seriously injured. Bai Chong had lost an arm. Ji Wuo was captured alive. What a tragedy! How tragic the war was! The source of this war was the awakening of Jian Wushuang's sword soul. Chapter 38, A Blood Feud. In a cave on an unknown hill, a few hundred miles inside Tranquility Forest, Jian Wushuang slowly woke up after being unconscious for most of the day. "Boy, are you awake?" The shaggy-haired, burly Buledin was sitting beside him, burning coals for barbecuing. He threw a piece of meat to Jian Wushuang and said, you must be hungry after being unconscious for so long. Come on. My name is Sima Buledin, but people call me Buledin. You can call me elder brother Buledin, he said. Brother Buledin, Jian Wushuang called out and immediately asked him, where is my aunt? Jiwu. Sima Buledin shook his head and heaved a deep sigh. She should have been caught by Blood Feather Tower. They are heartless and cruel. She would come to a sticky end. Asshole, cursed Jian Wushuang. Boy, your name is Jian Wushuang, right? Although you are young, you have caused Blood Feather Tower to appoint so many people to kill you. Sima Buledin sighed and said, but you seem to be at a loss. Yes, I'm puzzled. Up to this point, all I know is that I have awakened my sword soul. So they want to chase me down, just as they chased my father years ago. That's why he left Sword Marquee Mansion. But what is a sword soul? Jian Wushuang frowned. Sword soul? I haven't heard of it. But if Blood Feather Tower wants to kill you and your father so recklessly because of the sword soul, and they even slaughtered the Ji clan without hesitation, then it must be important, Sima Buledin said. Eldest brother Buledin, since you have a deep relationship with my aunt, you must know something about her, the Ji clan, and Blood Feather Tower. Please tell me something, Jian Wushuang pleaded seriously. We have been on many adventures together, and we were like Damon and Pythias, but I don't know much about her. However, I do know something about the Ji clan and Blood Feather Tower, Sima Buledin answered at once. When it comes to Blood Feather Tower and the Ji clan, we have to start with the general pattern of the Tianzong dynasty. The Tianzong dynasty has a vast territory with 16 provinces, and each province has many commanderies. For example, Tianyang province has 108 commanderies, and Bashui commandery is only one of them. So you can imagine how wide the Tianzong dynasty is. Although the Sword Marquee Mansion that you belong to is the most powerful, compared to the whole Tianzong dynasty, it is so weak that it can't even be regarded as a third-rate power. An amazing gleam appeared into Jian Wushuang's eye, but it soon disappeared. Indeed, it was only in Bashui commandery that Sword Marquee Mansion was a top power. In the entire Tianzong dynasty, it was not. Even in Tianyang province, there were countless powers stronger than Mansion of Sword Marquee. For example, the Tianyuan sword sect, one of the 5 sects in Tianyang province, was not something that the Sword Marquee Mansion could compare to. The 3 hegemons in the Tianzong dynasty are Golden Dragon Palace, the Gladiator Arena, and Blood Feather Tower. Sima Buledin continued. The ruler of Golden Dragon Palace is the monarch of the Tianzong dynasty. Branches of Golden Dragon Palace can be found all over the Tianzong dynasty. Although its power is overwhelming, it isn't restrained by the Golden Dragon Guard like me and your aunt, Ji Wu. The power of the Gladiator Arena, the biggest chamber of commerce, is everywhere in the Tianzong dynasty. It is said that the Gladiator Arena has the support of the imperial household, which must be the prince. The last one is Blood Feather Tower. Everyone that wanders around the Tianzong dynasty knows about and fears Blood Feather Tower. It is the #1 assassin organization recognized by the public. There are a large number of invisible assassins. These assassins are divided into 4 levels: copper, silver, gold, and purple. Silver masks generally have cultivation in the gold core realm. Gold masks are at the peak of the gold core realm. And purple masks are supreme experts in the legendary yin-yang void realm. This time, dozens of silver-masked assassins and 3 gold-masked assassins chased us down. What I talked about was the 3 hegemons with terrible strength who stood in the first echelons of the Tianzong dynasty. The ancient 8 clans were second to them. It is said that the 8 clans were passed down since the establishment of the Tianzong dynasty, ancient and culturally rich. One of them, the Ji clan, was wiped out 3 years ago, which shook the whole Tianzong dynasty. All the powers were curious about the reason. However, they were killed because of granting asylum to your father, Sima Buledin said and sighed. What about my aunt? What about the poison in her body? Jian Wushuang looked sullen. It is called heart-biting poison and it's very poisonous, enough to completely destroy a person gradually. When I saw her 3 years ago, she was poisoned and it would occasionally attack her. When it does, she suffers unprecedented pain that directly destroys her mind. She will refuse to have anything to do with her kin or friends, only understanding to crazily kill. I have seen it several times, it's so miserable. The attack of the poison manifests suddenly, without any regularity. She was trying to save you this time, but it so happened that the poison attacked, alas. Sima Buledin sighed gently, and said slowly, the poison quickly makes her fall into madness. If we took her, we could not have escaped, so. Saying this, Sima Buledin looked pale. He and Ji Wu had gone through many things together, and they had a deep relationship. He would have never left without her unless there was no choice. Who poisoned my aunt? Asked Jian Wushuang. I know. It was An Ying, the hall master of Blood Feather Tower in Tianyuan province. He was among the assassins this time, said Sima Buledin. An Ying? Good, I will remember him. Not only him, but also Blood Feather Tower. Jian Wushuang raised his head and his eyes were filled with unprecedented killing intent. He did not know his lot before, but now, he knew everything. His mother was the firstborn daughter of the Ji clan. He had the blood of the Ji clan. That is to say, he bore the blood feud of the Ji clan. In order to protect his father, the entire Ji clan was killed. His father, who had been caught by Blood Feather Tower, could be dead or alive. His aunt, persecuted by Blood Feather Tower, was suffering from severe pain. Now, in order to save him, she had been caught by them. With the awakening of his sword soul, the experts of Blood Feather Tower had come to kill him for the first time. All of the culprits were from Blood Feather Tower. Chapter 39, Inescapable Net. Feeling the killing intention from Jian Wushuang, Sima Buledin could not help but secretly shake his head. He could understand Jian Wushuang's killing intent toward Blood Feather Tower, but Blood Feather Tower was so powerful that not everyone could provoke it. Sitting in the cave, Jian Wushuang held his hands tightly with his eyes closed, slowly restraining his tremendous killing intent from the extreme anger that he originally felt. It was apparent that he had already calmed himself down. For me, Blood Feather Tower is a genuine colossus and I can't compete with them at my present strength. So I must endure for now. Endure, hide, and wait. Jian Wushuang held his hands so tightly that his nails dug into his palm until he was bleeding. Although his heart was full of killing intent, he needed to restrain his sharp edge. In addition to revenge, I also have to find a solution to make all these things clear, Jian Wushuang growled. Although he now knew his own lot and the huge blood debt that was on his shoulders, he still had many doubts in his heart. For example, what on earth was Sword Soul? Why had Blood Feather Tower tried to kill him and his father, who had awakened their sword souls, regardless of everything? In addition, what was the ancestors' land that his aunt, Ji Wu, told him about with her last words? There were many doubts that he slowly needed to explore. Strength. In the final analysis, my strength was so weak that I had no ability to stand against Blood Feather Tower when it chased after me to kill me. I only survived by good luck with the help of my aunt and Elder Hong, who sacrificed themselves for me. If my strength had been great enough that Blood Feather Tower feared me and did not even dare to offend me, then none of this would have happened. Strength. Strength. Jian Wushuang growled crazily in his heart. He had never had a thirst for strength as great as he did now. Even before, when he was betrayed by Jian Meng'er, he had not come to this point. After all, he fought with Jian Meng'er for his own dignity, for his father's dignity, and for the dignity of the Sword Pavilion. But with Blood Feather Tower, it was a blood feud that would never stop until death. In such an unprecedented desire for strength, even Jian Wushuang himself did not realize that the spiritual power in his body had sprung up at that moment, and the heavenly creation skill had operated naturally. Heavenly creation skill, the technique of claiming. Suddenly. Jian Wushuang's body suddenly shuddered, with a sense of amazement in his eyes, followed by surprise. Has the ninth heaven of the divine path been broken through? So unbelievable. Even Jian Wushuang did not think that his cultivation would naturally make a breakthrough while he was full of an unprecedented desire for strength. It must be known that, just a few days ago, he relied on absorbing a large amount of primordial spiritual liquid to promote himself to the eighth heaven of the divine path. And now, just a few days later, a huge breakthrough had directly been made. The ninth heaven of the divine path was equivalent to the profound spiritual sea realm of common warriors. So that, along with the advantage of the heavenly creation skill on strength, even if he did not use the soul-devouring secret skill, his spiritual power would not be weaker than Jian Meng'er, who had achieved the peak of the profound spiritual sea realm. His strength had risen again. The heavenly creation skill is so amazing. Jian Wushuang could not help thinking that, and was more confident with his future growth. The Blood Feather Tower was indeed a colossus for him now, but in the future, it might not be. My father, my mother, my aunt, the four elders, the Ji clan, and all the innocent people who have been implicated in this fight for me, I, Jian Wushuang, will bet all of myself to assure you that, in my lifetime, I will certainly slaughter Blood Feather Tower and uproot it. I will avenge you. Jian Wushuang, with cold eyes, had a determination that ran deep in his blood. The next morning. Boy, you stay here and wait for me while I go to the nearby cities to fish for information, Sima Buledin said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. He also knew that Blood Feather Tower would not take things lying down. Jian Wushuang stayed in the cave alone and cultivated quietly. After about an hour, Sima Buledin came back. Brother Buledin, how is it going? Jian Wushuang asked immediately. The situation is a lot worse than I thought. I walked around in a nearby city and there were no less than 10 assassins from Blood Feather Tower that I was aware of, as well as those who were hidden deep inside, so there must have been more that I couldn't find. What's more, I went to a secret intelligence station of the Golden Dragon Palace and learned that Blood Feather Tower has issued a scarlet arrest warrant for you. Now there are many scouts from Blood Feather Tower lurking around all the big cities, only waiting for you to appear, Sima Buledin said solemnly. It can be said that Blood Feather Tower has formed a tight dragnet in Bashui Commandery, even in the entire Tianyang province. So if you did appear, you would be killed by the experts of Blood Feather Tower without any ability to struggle. And with the intelligence capabilities of Blood Feather Tower, even if you bring a mask or camouflage your appearance, you will be noticed immediately by them as long as there is the slightest trace or flaw. I was going to bring you back to Golden Dragon Palace in Bashui Commandery to accomplish this task, but now it seems impossible, said Sima Buledin. I can't stay in Bashui Commandery for now. Jian Wushuang said with a low tone, not even Tianyang province is safe. I must leave quickly. You are right. Sima Buledin nodded. I realized it out on my way back. Right now, Blood Feather Tower is mainly focused on killing you inside of Tianyang province, where it is difficult for you to survive. But in other provinces, you still have space to live, and the most suitable for you is Tianese province, located in the surrounding area of Tianyang province. Tianese province is one of the main provinces where the gladiator arena operates, so the forces of Blood Feather Tower are not very strong there. It's the most suitable place for you to go. But the road from Bashui Commandery to Tianese province is relatively long and it requires passing through the dark forest. The dark forest. Jian Wushuang gazed slightly. He had also heard of the dark forest, which is a vast forest between Tianyang province and Tianese province. It was famous as a dangerous place full of spirit beasts and crisis. Then, I will go to Tianese province. Jian Wushuang said seriously, as for the dark forest, I'll just have passed through it. Haha, you are young, but you have great courage. Don't worry, I will go to Tianese province with you and escort you through the dark forest safely. Sima Buledin laughed. Even without you, I still have to go through the dark forest. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled with energy. Tianese province was his only chance to live and no one could stand in the way of his survival. Chapter 40, The Dark Forest. In the dark forest, spirit beasts were everywhere. It was a time of crisis. If Jian Wushuang wanted to go to Tianese province, he had to go through the dark forest. The first day after setting foot in the dark forest. Deep in the thick jungle. Howl. After roaring, a blue shadow jumped out as if it was a ghost, rushing at Jian Wushuang and Sima Buledin directly. Both of them responded quickly, and they easily moved away from the beast. It's a scarlet leopard, no wonder it moved so fast, said Sima Buledin with a low voice, looking at the spirit beast which suddenly attacked them. Leave it to me, Jian Wushuang said with piercing eyesight. He pulled his triple kill sword from behind, and the sword light moved straight toward the scarlet leopard. Be careful, this scarlet leopard has reached the profound spiritual sea realm, Sima Buledin had only just reminded him, then Jian Wushuang showed off his unparalleled sword light the next moment. The sword light was like snow, and on such a boundless ground, broke out its spiritual power all of a sudden. Clang! 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 After a series of 3 swords split out, each sword light looked so beautiful. At that time, the scarlet leopard also charged forward its 4 hooves, trampling heavily on the ground, then turned into lightning, rushing toward Jian Wushuang fiercely. Chi! At that moment, the brilliant sword light easily ripped a huge hole in the scarlet leopard's body, and the scarlet leopard's belly began to bleed as all its internal organs began falling out everywhere, which led to its immediate death. Too weak. Jian Wushuang glanced at the body of the scarlet leopard, and sympathetically shook his head. Compared with humans, spirit beasts at the same level were indeed more powerful. However, when it was under the condition of slaughtering, it entirely depended on the instinct of the spirit beast, which was far less than a cultivating human warrior with martial arts techniques. I have broken through the 9th heaven of the divine path. My spiritual power could be compared to the highest level of profound spiritual sea realm, but by virtue of my swordsmanship, spirit beasts in the profound spiritual sea realm are not a threat to me at all. If it was a spirit beast in the exceptional spiritual sea realm, there may have been some pressure on me, Jian Wushuang said, with a glimmer of anticipation in his eyes. There were not many things in the dark forest, but there were many spirit beasts. Here, there were countless spirit beasts in the spiritual sea realm, and there were even quite a few spirit beasts in the gold core realm. With so many strong spirit beasts, it could serve as an excellent cultivating place as well as a dangerous spot at the same time. Ah! Excellent swordsmanship, boy. Sima Buledin came over, glancing at Jian Wushuang with astonishment. In addition, your cultivation is not bad as well. How did you kill that scarlet leopard, in the profound spiritual sea realm, in an instant? Also, how old are you this year? 16. Jian Wushuang told him his true age. Sima Buledin stared at him. Brother Buledin, from now on, if it's not necessary, you do not have to fight. I can take charge of killing the spirit beasts on the way through the dark forest, Jian Wushuang solemnly said. No problem. Sounds good to me. Sima Buledin nodded with a smile, with no need to explain more since he knew Jian Wushuang's purpose. Half a day later. Boy, be cautious. What you are facing now is a spurting mouse in the exceptional spiritual sea realm. It is not only fast but also has a body that's extremely hard, except for its eyes. But its means of attack are very simple. And that is its teeth, which are very sharp and can easily crunch rigid bluestones. Therefore, you'd better protect yourself from being bitten. Sima Buledin reminded him off to the side. Jian Wushuang stared at the spurting mouse in front of him, a small but oppressive figure that had eyes blazing with ferocity. Frizzle. The spurting mouse made a whinny sound, then its body immediately burst out in the form of a flowing light. Purple fire sword art. Jian Wushuang, who became hot-tempered, used the triple kill sword with a baking hot sword edge, and instantaneously slaughtered the spurting mouse. Such a fierce fight. Because the body of the spurting mouse was so stiff, it was not hurt too much by Jian Wushuang, either by his long sword or the straight stab. The only vulnerability of the spurting mouse was its eyes. However, the target was too small and moved so fast. It was actually quite difficult to attack it. At last, Jian Wushuang was forced to use the first move of anonymous sword art, Blood Shadow. He swept his sword toward the spurting mouse with an astonishing speed. With this move, he successfully killed it. Unfortunately, the spurting mouse had also bitten off a large piece of flesh from his shoulder. It was such a painful wound. Carry on. Simply bandaging the wound on his shoulder, Jian Wushuang recovered his spiritual power and he continued on his way. That night, the moonlight was so bright but it did not reach into the forest. The complete darkness in the dark forest was horrible. Later, in the treetops of a large tree lay Sima Buletin, dangling a weed and laying on his hands while his eyes looked at Jian Wushuang, who was cultivating under the tree from time to time. How hard-working this little guy is. He is so strict with himself. Sima Buletin laughed secretly. Although he had entered the dark forest only one day ago, Sima Buletin felt the instinctive madness in Jian Wushuang. In just 1 day's time, Jian Wushuang had gone through a full 8 battles, of which 6 opponents were spirit beasts in the profound transforming sea realm, while the other 2 were in the exceptional spiritual sea realm. With Jian Wushuang's present strength, it would be extremely fierce to fight with spirit beasts in the exceptional spiritual sea realm without using the soul-devouring secret skill. Like today, when fighting with a spirit beast in the exceptional spiritual sea realm, although Jian Wushuang had successfully killed one of them, he himself did not escape unharmed. A large chunk of flesh was bitten off his shoulder, and another spirit beast in the exceptional spiritual sea realm scratched him above his chest with its sharp claws, leaving a very clear bloody paw print. In fact, as extremely numerous as spirit beasts were in the dark forest, it was impossible to encounter so many spirit beasts in the profound spiritual sea realm and exceptional spiritual sea realm on the first day. This occurred because Jian Wushuang deliberately searched for those spirit beasts. As for other warriors, they tended to avoid meeting spirit beasts that had mighty strength. However, Jian Wushuang was deliberately looking for these powerful spirit beasts to battle with them. Although it's a bit crazy, he has improved through these experiences. What's more, his swordsmanship is really good, Sima Buletin said to himself. Swordsmanship. Sima Buletin was suddenly a little touched, but he became absorbed in thought the next moment. Early the next morning, Jian Wushuang gradually opened his eyes with a trace of joy. After one night, his spiritual power was refined a bit, and although his overall strength had not improved, at least he was making progress every day. The life-or-death fights in the dark forest with spirit beasts had also greatly promoted his swordsmanship. Carry on today, Jian Wushuang gripped his hands tightly. A madness shined deep in his eyes that had not even slightly weakened. Instead, it had become a little more powerful.